tinfoil hat.
Oh, what the f*** is he even talking about?
Global controls will have to be imposed, and a world governing body will be created to enforce them.
Welcome to Tinfoil Hat. We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Are you ready to get your mind blown?
Revolution will be podcasted.
All right, everybody, and welcome to Tinfoil Hat, live from the Wise Wolf Gold and Silver Studios. Just go to samtripoli.gold, use the promo code TINFOIL, and you too can get in on the Precious Metals game for as little as $50 a month. Precious Metals sent right to your house. We're very excited to have our next guest on. His last episode was pure fire, and I've seen some of his talking points. This one's going to be just like that. Please welcome back to the show, Dr. Joseph P. Farrell. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back.
Well, thanks for coming back. Everyone loved your last episode. You're a legend, and we're glad to have you. So for those who may not be familiar with your last appearance or may not know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where our listeners can find you?
Well, I write crazy books in the alternative research field. You can find me at my website, which is called Giza Death Star, Giza, and then Death Star, all one word. That's where I have my blog, and then there's a pay area to the website where there's a little extra stuff, and that's where we have our vid chats. But that's me.
How many books do you have?
Right now, I think it's about 45. Somewhere in there.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's incredible.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but
it's as close as men are ever going to get to childbirth writing a book. So.
And women are like, whatever. I'm like telling you, it's labor. It's labor.
It's labor. That's right.
So, you know, we live in this kind of time in America culture where everyone's being called a Nazi. You know, I mean, even in Canada, you have politicians calling truckers Nazis. Why these politicians' grandfathers are literal Nazis. It's like this weird thing. It's this kind of term that's just been thrown at everybody and anything that they don't like. You see those famous memes of those kids' book, which is like Hitler riding down a rainbow. Is like anyone I disagree with is a Nazi. It's a crazy kind of term, but you know, you've done a lot of research into Nazis. Before we get into this might sound like a weird question. What do you think the greatest misunderstanding of Nazis or the entire Nazi story is?
Well, I think the greatest misunderstanding is that people have this idea that Nazism as a political and ideological system is a philosophy of the right, of the political right. It's not. The name of the Nazi party, its official name, was Die Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterspartei, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Well, Nazism was a form of socialism known as fascism. And, you know, Mussolini's definition of fascism was probably the best that there is, that he gave, is that in that system, property ownership remained private, but the policy-making decisions were left in the hands of the government. So in other words, the government told property owners, including corporations, what you're going to do. So in other words, this is not a philosophy of the right, it's a philosophy of the political left. And that's the biggest misconception that people have to this day. Bolshevism in Stalin's Russia was a kind of national socialism of its own, because Trotsky, of course, wanted to extend the Bolshevik Revolution immediately on a global scale. And of course, he lost out to Stalin, who says, no, we've got to apply socialism nationally inside the Soviet Union first and then export it. So, in other words, basically, Bolshevism in the Soviet Union becomes its own kind of national socialism. So you have that misconception. The other misconception is that I'm watching this. I don't know what else to call it. This crazy revisionist history idea that Hitler was a man of peace, and the war was actually started by Winston Churchill and Neville Chamberlain.
Yeah,
all of this
Dick
goofy
Risers are
nonsense. Yeah,
crazy.
it is. It really is. So the way the United States, I think, has degenerated into this is they wore out the term racist by accusing so many people of being racist that the term lost any potency or efficacy. So now everybody's a Nazi.
Yes. And you're also seeing that with anti-Semitism too.
Yes,
They
exactly.
called everybody
everybody's an anti-Semite if you criticize Israel. Well, I'm at the front of the line criticizing Israel. So, call me whatever you want.
So I want to say a Nazism, but I just want to ask a question. We often hear with communism that it's about seizing the means of production. I don't know if actually people realize what that means. To you, what does that mean?
It means exactly what it says, that under the Bolshevik system, all ownership becomes state-owned. So that's one of the distinguishing differences between Bolshevism and Nazism or fascism, because under the Nazi regime, for example, the Krupp armaments works remained in the hands of the Krupp stockholders. They just had to do what the government told them. In the Soviet Union, all of those companies that existed, Mikoyan, Sukhoi, and the companies that build their aircraft, in other words, all of those became state-owned. So the state literally owns everything. And the other thing that happens that people really have to latch on to, because we're seeing this system, they're attempting to put this system into place in this country and in the West right now. And that is that the money, the Russian ruble under the Soviet Union's system, the Russian ruble became a tokenized asset. Why? Because theoretically, everybody, the people in the country, owned all of the national assets. So the ruble was backed. It was a tokenized backed asset that everybody owned a fraction of that asset. Okay, so in other words, the ruble became basically worthless because the asset backing it up was so minuscule and a small little token of something. Well, they're trying to do that now. Here's the example right here. That's an Oklahoma goldback, and I don't know if you can read the bottom of it. It says 1/2000th troy ounce of gold. That's the amount of gold content in this thing. So in other words, they can pretend this is backed, but I can't take this to my bank and get 1/2000th of a troy ounce of gold.
Right. I understand
That's
what you're
the
saying.
problem. That's the problem.
And that was what it was about. Like, this note meant
Right.
you owned this much of gold and you could
Right.
turn it in for gold, right?
Right, exactly. That's why it's a tokenized asset. So in other words, this is another banker's swindle.
Oh my God.
We're going back to gold backed money. Oh, really? So 1/2000th. If I scrape all the gold off of this piece of plastic, I might be able to get a little fleck of gold, and this is what you're going to take to the grocery store to buy your grocery. I'm sorry, no, that dog don't hunt. But yeah, that's the system of currency basically that the Soviet Union had, because the currency was backed by the assets of the state, which owned everything. So the currency became a tokenized asset.
So do I understand that when you compare Nazism to communism, in a weird way, Nazism at least lets you own property. Is that the
That's
difference?
exactly correct.
So
The only problem is you couldn't dispose of your property as you wish. The state was there to tell you how to do it. So in other words, yeah, it's all of kind of a fiction, because if the state is disposing of the policy or how you want to dispose of your property, do you really own it? Well, answer no. So the wonderful fiction here is you're responsible for property ownership under the law, but the state tells you what to do with it. Talk about goofy and loony, but that's the system. And in Mussolini's Italy, it got to the point that the fascist party it created these syndicates where the governing boards of large Italian companies like Olivetti or Fiat or Ansaldo, companies like that, had their representatives seated on the fascist councils. And if you look very carefully at modern day Germany, there's a very similar arrangement in Germany about how the government runs and allows labor unions to sit on corporate boards and so on. And so it's all goofy. I don't know how else to describe it.
It's all consolidation of power, right?
Exactly. It's all centralization of power. And boy, that's worked out really well, hasn't it?
I don't know if this could be a weird question, but there just seems to be this role of trust fund kids and rich kids who really haven't felt any pain and suffering from the moment they took their first breath. They're born in the best hospitals, go home to gated communities, go to the best private schools, get juiced into the best colleges, get internships at the biggest jobs out, the biggest corporations out there. And for some reason, they just want to rail against their fathers. But at the end of the day, they end up just consolidating more power under authority.
Right. And I would add they consolidate more power under incompetent authority, because these people are fundamentally stupid. They're stupid.
They really are.
Einstein's definition of insanity was trying the same old thing and thinking it's going to work out differently every time you try it. Okay, well, how many times do we have to try the experiment with socialism to figure out it doesn't work?
And their whole thing is that, well, this isn't pure socialism. This isn't real communism. This isn't that. But I don't know how you can have any of that when you're always going to have alphas, psychopaths, incredibly brilliant people that are smarter than everybody else that can figure out ways to game the system to, again, eventually consolidate power. I don't understand how it's going to be any different ever.
The problem with those systems is that the interesting thing when you compare the kind of capitalism we've been living under and socialism is there's one crucial difference, and it's not so much a difference about the economic system, it's a difference about their doctrine of man. Under socialism, man is, number one, not fallen, and number two, perfectible without divine grace. And of course, what that means in practice is under socialism, corruption reigns. It becomes the rule of the day. And that's why it ultimately fails, because you're trying to live a utopian doctrine in a fallen world. That's the problem.
Yes.
Capitalism, on the other hand, says, well, we are fallen and there's going to be corruption. And if you doubt me, go read Alexander Hamilton's Federalist Papers. He puts corruption front and center, and he's all for it. I'm not a big fan of Al Hamilton for that reason, but at least he's honest in that respect.
I agree.
So, these systems are as different as night and day. I mean, we just elected an Islamist mayor of New York City.
So crazy, dude.
I wonder how Islamism is going to work out, any better than just plain old communism. I don't know.
I agree. And it's very weird because, as you look at There's so much data from history about this doesn't work out. I mean, if you just go to Europe and all these Islamic mayors that have just completely destroyed their city, and yet nobody wants to look at that. And it's this weird statistic that like the demographic that gets the most money spent on them, meaning people are spending money for them, are females 18 to like 32 years old. If you look at Mondani's voting, who vote for him, 18 to 32-year-old female progressives, which is the number one demographic that people spend money on, all voted for Mondani at a rate of like 80%. And it's like, it's this term that's you're seeing everywhere now, like suicidal empathy, like to literally vote against your own best interest.
Does it remind you anything of Bernie Sanders? Because it was the same. I remember that was like when I was 18, 20, there was Bernie, but now it's Mondavi, which I'm like, yo, it's kind of the same thing, but just since he's like,
at least with him, you got the anti-war element. That was really important to bring a lot of people into the Bernie tent. I wasn't one of them, obviously, because
every guy that's ran since 9/11 has ran on I'm going to stop war, and every one of them, the day they took their oath, completely stabbed their voters in the back and just increased war every time. It's like they say, no matter who you vote for, you end up getting John McCain. Every time.
Or Bibi Netanyahu.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
It's a phenomenon that you don't get me started on feminism and the results on modern culture. I'm a traditionalist curmudgeon.
Yeah.
But there are a number of studies, many of them from Canada, that have appeared in recent years. One book I'm thinking of is a book called Sanctifying Misandry by two Canadian scholars that have studied the effects of these pro-feminist policies and judicial decisions in their country. Another book, they followed that book up with a book called Legalizing Misandry. So, this is definitely a phenomenon, this war against men and this promotion of emotional, incompetent, stupid women wearing nose rings in their nasal septum and, all sorts of weirdness. Good luck finding a husband that way, ladies.
And the worst part of it is that the older feminists straight up lie to the younger feminists because misery loves company.
Yes,
they just straight up lie to them.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. So the culture is a mess. I don't personally see a political solution that's going to fix it. This is a cultural and spiritual problem that we're facing, and it's not going to get better until we quit trying to fix the problem by a misdiagnosis and say all we have to do is elect the right guy. The other problem, as you point out, is we elect these politicians on the basis of, well, let's put America first and stop these endless wars. But nothing happens to stop the endless wars. This country is coming up on its 250th anniversary as a nation. And I read a statistic somewhere recently where we've been at war somewhere around 230 or 240 years out of our 250-year existence. Now, that to me is a sad statistic. It's a fulfillment of Al Hamilton, that very first paragraph of the very first Federalist paper. What does he call the country? He doesn't call it a republic. He doesn't call it a democracy. The word he uses right there in the first paragraph of the first Federalist paper is empire. So the country was set up to be this way. The other problem that I think, that Americans have to address very honestly is the MAGA movement, I think, had a fatal flaw in that it was by being America first, it did not focus on foreign policy enough, and therefore the people left in charge of America's foreign policy are the John McCains and the Lindsey Graham crackers and, the Mitch McConnells and the Chuck Schumers and, people of that ilk. And so nothing has changed in our foreign policy. As a matter of fact, I would argue it's gotten much worse.
Yes, I agree. Hey, guys, real quick, I want to talk to you about the evil beast banking system. It is purposefully destroying the value of your dollar. Every day your money's in the bank, it's worth less and less and less because these demons just are trying to print us into the ruble, okay? No more. This is what you're going to do. If you're really smart, you'll take some of your money out of the bank, invest in precious metals, and stabilize the value of your cash. And there's no better place to do that than our good friends at Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. That's right. Let me tell you about Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. If you're paying attention, you know that de-dollarization is real. Fiat is fake, and you don't want to be left holding the bag when the dollar collapses. Gold and silver has been money through all of recorded history and are an excellent way to protect yourself from inflation and geopolitical turmoil. That's why I trust my friends at Wise Wolf Gold and Silver for all things precious metal. Veteran-owned and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau. No transaction is too big or too small, and you can even roll over your 401k or IRA into physical gold and silver. And if you think you can't afford precious metals, think again. With the Wolf Pack monthly membership program, you can get gold and silver delivered directly to your door for as little as $50 a month. Wise Wolf Gold and Silver also deals in and accepts Bitcoin. So go to samtripoli.gold, promo code tinfoil at checkout to receive free constitutional silver. And remember, in the world of bulls and bears, be the wolf. We are out here fighting demons, my brothers and sisters. Fighting demons of depopulation. We are not making enough more of us, more people. And that's why you got to stop dropping some D out there, boys. Never pull out. Never again. All right. And that's why I want to tell you about our good friends, an American hero company, Blue Chew. That's right. All right, Blue Chew. Blue Chew, an American company trying to just make more American boners for those ladies out there. Sauce it up. Chew up the club. Listen, guys, if you wanted to last longer with big, hard ones, okay, there's no better company than Blue Chew. So Blue Chew has all the active ingredients of all the other more expensive ones, but just at a fraction of the price, okay? It's that simple. And the process is really easy. You go on Blue Chew, you answer a couple of their questions in their quiz, and then you talk to a licensed physician who's going to hook you up with the right subscription. And the best part is, this is the best part, no doctor's visit. No more going to the farm. And guess what? No doctor visit. And guess what else? It's shipped right to your house in a discreet package. You don't even got to go to the pharmacy and look at all the other freaks there, okay? You don't have to go. You can wait at home, wait till you get the magic from heaven. That's a little Blue Chew pill, and light her up, okay? It's time. God wants you to have babies. You need babies. Blue Chew wants you to have babies. Tinfoil Hat wants you to have the babies. Never pull out. Never again. Get rock hard. It's just that simple.
Guys, this isn't just about performance either. It's about legacy, or as Sam has said many times, the third legacy.
Max it out.
Give her group chat something to talk about. You know, when you lay it down, they're talking about how it gets up. Nothing makes you more of a legend than a little Blue Chew. Discover your options at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, get your first month of Blue Chew free using the promo code TINFOIL, one word, at checkout, and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join Blue Chew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time.
Yeah.
Head to bluechew.com for details and safety info, and a big thank you to Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast.
Never pull out. Never again. You know, we argue about who runs the world. You know, the United States gets blamed for everything. Now, you've seen in the last couple of years Israel being blamed, and maybe they're the head of the snake. But for me, and I've said this before on the show, it's almost like Mad Max in the Terror Dome when they're in the dome and Max is fighting the giant idiot with the tiny little guy on his back, and like America is the big muscle idiot, and England is the tiny guy. But really, above it all, is Tina Turner at the top, who is, in my humble opinion, the Bank of England, and their role in almost like everything. They've destroyed China, they destroyed Germany, they destroyed Russia, and like we're kind of in line for that exact treatment. Do you have any thoughts on that? Am I way off on that?
No, I don't think you're off. If there's anything off about your take, it may be ascribing too much power to the Bank of England.
Okay.
But it certainly remains a prominent financial factor. I would simply argue that what you're seeing in the breakdown of the modern economy is that the economy has been run for the last 500 years by a mafia called central banksters. And up to a certain point in history, they coordinate their policies rather well. What I'm seeing now is all the signs of panic because everything they're trying is breaking down. You know, they've patched the system so many times, it's no longer the same quilt.
Yeah.
It's a completely new quilt. So yeah, the Bank of England certainly remains a power, but the banks that I would personally focus on with respect to, a financial manipulation behind the scenes of the world is the Bank of International Settlements.
I agree.
In Basel. The World Bank, the Central Bank of Europe in Frankfurt. I'd focus on entities like that more than national central banks like the Bank of England or the Federal Reserve and so on. There are other entities I think people need to focus on as well, like the Exchange Stabilization Fund in this country. But yeah, is there a financial plutocratic class trying to manipulate world events and drive them in a certain direction? Absolutely. David Rockefeller in his memoirs told us that bluntly, and then he said, I'm not only behind this effort, I'm proud of it, So, okay, you're boasting that you've committed treason, David.
Yeah.
And that you're proud of it. Okay, fine.
So the hip cool thing in on Twitter now is to blame for everything. Part of this beast system, I think, is above the Abrahamic religions, and they almost use them to manipulate everything, to cause fights with anything. Do you have any thought? I know we had a couple notes here that talked about Nephilims, and or it's also known as the Watchers, the people who worship these dark entities. Do you think it is any of the Abrahamic religions, or do you think it's a much older Babylonian type belief system that is embedded at the highest levels of all of these religions? Like in Judaism, we see the little black cube on top of their head. In Mecca, they go around a black cube. Is there a higher level that maybe most people's elevators don't get to, that they might not understand?
That is a horribly complex question. Most of my life, in some way or fashion, and in most of my books, I'm dealing with that question. Even if it's only kind of lurking in the background, it's always there. The black cube on the head, by the way, that's called a phylactery.
Yeah.
Okay. I do not think that Jews are to blame or behind it all.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
If you're going to place blame on a group of people that practice Judaism, I would say blame the Zionists more than people.
I agree.
And they're not the same. This is the other thing that people have to get through their head. I think Zionism, as many Jewish scholars when Israel was founded pointed out, was a danger. And, I didn't say that. Alfred Lilienthal said it. Hannah Arendt said it. They were pointing out the inherent problems of the way things were going to go with the appearance of a Zionist state. And those were Jews. So I think the first thing that people have to get out of their head is equating Israel with Judaism. Okay? Israel, in my opinion, has a right to exist. Does it have a right to go in and slaughter Palestinians? No. Sorry, it doesn't. Nor do Palestinians have a right to go into Israel and slaughter Israelis. Okay, that's just normal. That's just normal humanity. I do not think that Israel has any special status with Christianity because Christianity is the fulfillment of all those promises to the ancient Hebrew people. And therefore, my interest in Israel is not theological, period. The Abrahamic religions, I think, are, yes, I think to a great extent there is an attempt on the part of the powers that be to manipulate them, and particularly to manipulate them with respect to their eschatological expectations, because all three of them have certain expectations about the end times. And, you know, in Islam, the appearance of the Imam Mahdi; in Judaism, the first coming of the Messiah; and in Christianity, the second coming of the Messiah. The problem is that most Christians misunderstand what that second coming means, particularly in this country. So, yeah, are they being manipulated? Yes. Is there something standing behind them of a demonic nature? That is also a complex question. Because if you look at the behavior of Yahweh in the Old Testament, if you read the first 5 books of Moses, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, he's a rather bloodthirsty character. I mean, there's just no two ways to put it. But by the time you get to the prophets, that character has changed completely. It's almost like you're reading about someone entirely different. By the time you get to the New Testament, there's that famous statement of Christ in the Gospel of St. John: "You are of your father the devil, and he was a liar and murderer from the beginning."
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's right out of the Gospel of St. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
So, well, it means, number one, you got to be careful when you're dealing with the Old Testament outside of the New Testament perspective. That's what it means. So in other words, yeah, that promise fulfillment thing is real, and it's very complex. But what you see happening is you see people viewing, rather than viewing the Old Testament in the light of the New, they're trying to interpret the New Testament in the light of the Old. And that's where all this modern American Christian dispensationalists, we got to pay attention to Israel and bless the Israelis, because if we don't, God's going to curse us. And that means, in effect, that we can't criticize Israel for anything they do, even how immoral it is. So, you know, this is the problem. So on my website, you know, people that are familiar with my website, I keep warning people the fulfillment, meaning the supposed fulfillment of biblical prophecy, or if you're Muslim, the supposed fulfillment of Quranic prophecy, and so on and so forth, that the fulfillment itself is the deception. Why? It's very simple. In American dispensationalist thinking, we have to pay attention to Israel because when they rebuild the temple, that's the signal for the end times. And by the way, that's always been common Christian teaching. But the problem is it does not confer special privileges to Israel. Why? Because in the New Testament, Christ says, "Destroy this temple and I will raise it up in 3 days." He's talking about his body. He's talking about the church. He's not talking about a building where you twist the neck of a turtle dove and sprinkle the blood on the altar. That's what he's talking about. That's over. That's done. It has nothing to do with the Christian message. That's the problem. So, you know, the essence of it is you've got all these people thinking that we've got to pay attention to Israel, and Antichrist and the second return of Christ could happen any minute now. But the problem is is that his kingdom is not of this world. The resurrection is about the conquest of the kingdom of death.
Whoa.
Pure and simple, period. It has nothing to do with that. I want to use very nasty language.
You're welcome to do it.
It has nothing to do with that little turd of a country floating in the punch bowl of the Middle East. Nothing. The only thing that we're told is when they start doing this stuff, then yeah, you're in the end times and you can expect the Antichrist any minute now. But as for Christ coming back and kicking out Antichrist and setting himself up in the restored temple and ruling with a rod of iron, please note that in the dispensational scheme, the only way that you can tell the difference between Antichrist and Christ is the order of their appearance. It is not based in their character. I hope everybody just heard me.
Yes.
Because if you have misinterpreted, just imagine for a moment, all you biblical scholars out there that set up your shingle and have your Bible churches, if you're wrong and you have misinterpreted the chronological order, how do you tell the difference between the two? Which one rose from the dead? Which one reverses the kingdom of death? Doesn't look like much of it to me in the standard dispensationalist interpretation. So in other words, get your eyes on eternity and on heaven and not on rebuilt temples and a turd of a country in the Middle East causing problems for everybody else. And by the way, all those other countries causing problems for the little turd of a country. What is this? And this is really the problem that you're seeing right now. I didn't mean to get off on this tangent.
That was fire.
But your question prompts it. But you know, we're watching right now. I think something amazing happen. I've been waiting for this to happen most of my life because I have never been a dispensationalist ever. I'm not a pre-tribulational rapturist and, you know, all of that nonsense that somehow Christians are going to avoid suffering for their faith in something called the rapture, because that's what it is. And by the way, there's an early church father by the name of St. Ignatius of Antioch, who was the personal disciple of the apostle St. John, and he wrote a series of letters. And in one of those letters, he says certain heretics, abstain from the Eucharist and prayers and martyrdom because they do not allow that our Lord came in the flesh and rose from the dead, and so on and so forth. So in other words, he's not thinking in any remote connection the same way as a modern evangelical dispensationalist is thinking. For him, martyrdom is not something to be avoided by some event called the rapture. It's what you do as part of your Christian witness. So, you know, this whole goofy system that America's come up with. But notice what's happened since the Charlie Kirk assassination. There is a growing number of people within evangelicalism who are challenging that whole Zio-Christian narrative.
Yes.
Including the term Judeo-Christian, by the way, which is a term that was come up with, that was literally invented and foisted upon Western civilization in the late 19th century, and it really started to gain currency in between the world wars. So prior to that, when people talked about civilization, they talked about Christendom. There was no Judeo thrown in there. It was Christendom, period. So there's another sea change there. And by the way, that's deliberate. And it occurs at approximately the same time as you see that abominable Schofield reference Bible that, you know, circulated all these crazy ideas about dispensationalism in the 19th century. And by the way, who financially backed that Bible? Well, it was a bunch of oil barons from California.
Yeah.
You know, come on, guys, wake up. I'm sorry. I didn't mean, I'm on a rant. This
Brother.
stuff just absolutely makes my blood boil.
I'm all about it, and this is the show, so it goes where it goes. So should there be some sort of concern? I don't know. When I thought about the rapture, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm getting into Christianity more and more. I'm really early into my journey. I'm trying my best. But I guess as a kid, or if I ever thought about it, it was like a natural progression through time. But it just seems that this what end of days or whatever's happening seems to be getting astroturfed by a group of people, which seem to be putting on a production play for the world to follow. And is that a concern to everybody that this is not a natural progression to what is meant to be a giant event that happens through God?
Okay, you can only get away with this through ignorance. And I'm going to be very blunt and very direct. If you think you're going to solve all this by reading your Bible, in other words, being a good Protestant, following the Bible and the Bible only, here's the bad news. The Bible does not create the church. The church creates the Bible. Period. If the Bible were able to create the church, you wouldn't have over 40,000 plus little denominations, each with their own special brand of marketing, hanging up a shingle without any connection to Christianity in the previous centuries. That's the problem. So in other words, if you're really going to study the Bible, by golly, study the church fathers who gave you that Bible and what they said about it and how they interpreted it. Study the St. Basils of Caesarea and the St. Gregory of Nyssa and the St. Gregory of Nazianzus and the St. Athanasiuses and the St. Ignatiuses and the St. Ambroses of Milan and the St. Hilary of... In other words, I'm listing a bunch of guys that most Americans have never even heard of. Why? Because it never occurs to them, if you've got all of these interpretations of the Bible, each one specializing, well, by golly, let's go find out how the early Christians understood these things. And to do that, we've actually got to go read them. So in other words, what I'm suggesting to you, and I mean this personally as a challenge to you, if you're in court and you're disputing a contract, okay, if you're disputing the meaning of a contract and you're going to court to litigate this dispute, what's the court going to do? The court is going to look at something that in law is called the course of performance. How did those parties act interpreting this contract in similar or other situations? Because how they acted is how they're interpreting that contract, that document. So in other words, there is a doctrine in law that is exactly the same thing as what we call, here it comes, folks, tradition in theology. How do people interpret that text historically and in time? I guarantee you that when you get into this, you're going to discover a whole different way of thinking than the modern evangelical American way of thinking. It's as far as the East is from the West, if I may quote the Psalm. It is absolutely different. So that's the first thing I am warning you. Don't think you're going to be able to do this just by opening your Bible or opening a Greek lexicon. You've got to find out what the people who gave you those books in the Bible actually said. And by the way, why did they give you those books and not some other books? Why not the Gospel of St. Thomas? Why not? Well, there are answers to that question. But you have to read those people to find out what they are. Okay, that's the problem. And no one wants to do the work. Everyone wants to hang out their shingle. You know, look at Charlie Kirk and all the kerfuffle over who gets to claim his legacy. Well, the fact of the matter is Charlie Kirk woke up and was exploring Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy towards the end of his life because he realized this evangelicalism stuff has no historical foundation at all. So I better find out what the heck is going on with this Christianity stuff and find out from the original sources, not from Johnny Go Blow, who set up shop in a strip mall and calls himself a pastor of a church. Come on. There has to be authority.
I totally.
Anyway, I'm done rant. I went on my rant again. I'm sorry, guys.
Hey, do not. This is. What
I'm
it's
watching all of this, and I'm just going, wake up, people.
I love it. I love it. I think it's very important, and it's exactly why we have you on is for these.
It's to rant.
100%.
We're inviting
That's
Dr.
what we're all
Farrell
about here.
It's time for a purple-faced rant.
No, dude, we love it. I love it. Hey, guys, real quick, I want to tell you about our good friends at Masa, okay? Did you know that all chips and fries used to be cooked in tallow up to the 1990s when big corporations switched to cheap processed seed oils, okay? Today's seed oils make up 20% of the average American's daily calories. And recent studies have linked seed oils to metabolic health issues and inflammation in the body.
That's right, Sam. And Masa decided to do something about it.
Let's go.
They created a tasty and delicious tortilla chip with just 3 ingredients. And most importantly, no seed oils.
Nada.
The 3 ingredients are organic nixtamalized corn, which it sounds complicated. It's not. It's a very simple process. Sea salt and 100% grass-fed beef tallow.
Yes.
These chips don't only avoid all the bad stuff, they also taste incredible. Masa is crunchier, tastier, and sturdier than other chips. That means they're not breaking off in your guac, so you're not eating somebody else's leftovers in your guacamole for a
Problem
week.
solved.
Snacking on Masa chips is nothing like eating regular chips, if you hadn't gotten that clue already. With Masa, you feel satisfied, light, and energetic with no crash, bloat, or gross, sluggish feeling afterwards. And as an added bonus, the beef tallow that makes up the chips is much more satiating, so you won't find yourself uncontrollably binging and still feeling hungry after. Personally, my favorite flavor is probably the churro ones. I also like the standard white corn ones. They're delicious also, but they're all good, honestly. I ate all of them in less than a week, so that should tell you enough.
Xavier, your thoughts?
Dude, as the Mexican, the lime ones. You want some ceviche with that? Can't go wrong.
Let's go, Xavier.
And we would, honestly, the ad calls for us to have a bag on set. We would have a bag.
We would have
on
a
set.
bag. We wanted the bag, and then we ate the bag.
We ate all of them weeks ago.
We're like, don't eat all of it. We got to use the bag. And the bag is gone. And it's gone.
We ate all of the chips weeks ago.
So here's what we need you to do, guys. If you're ready to give Masa a try, go to masachips.com/tinfoil and use the code tinfoil for 25% off your first order. My God, they're giving it away. That's Masa, MASA chips.com/tinfoil and the code tinfoil for 25% off your first order. Now, if you don't feel like ordering online, that's fine. Masa is now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. Stop by and pick up a bag before they're gone. We prefer you order online, though. Thank you. Thank you for sponsoring our show. Johnny, do you have any thoughts? Because Johnny grew up more in organized religion than the other ones on the show. XG, were you?
We went, but we just, it was like
just kind of going through the motions.
Yeah, Mexican thing. You just went because you have kids.
Your phrase right there is to me a dead giveaway, and it's a typical American attitude.
Oh no.
Well,
I'm sorry.
no. Hear me out. Well, I don't belong to any organized religion. So what does that make you? You're part of a disorganized religion. And that's what, Americans are proud of this. Oh, I don't belong to any organized church. Well, that means you've got a head full of mush and all of your thoughts about theology are disorganized, inchoate, contradictory, and probably not well thought out. So yeah, you've got a disorganized religion, and that's the problem. By the way, do you think that's the way the early church was structured?
Probably not.
No. Guess what, folks? They had little things like apostles and priests and deacons. That's called a hierarchy. And what's a hierarchy? Well, it's called organization. And it had prayers in the book. they weren't all around just making up prayers because they felt like, well, this is what I want to talk about and preach about right now. No, there was ritual. It was organized as far back as you can go in the documents. It was organized. There are texts of the Mass, of the communion service, that date from the 2nd century. So it was not disorganized. So, take that American idea and throw that to the winds too.
If I just kind of where I'm coming from on that, because
I know where you're coming from.
There's a lot of people that might think that some of the church structure that in modern day is kind of detachment from God.
I totally agree, but here's the question. How and when and why did it become detached?
Yeah, I guess
does that mean the structure itself is co-opted, or that structure itself is bad? Now, I look at these mega churches and I see structure, but I see nothing really that says this is Christian. I mean, look at the
that's
mega
kind of
church.
what I'm saying.
It's an auditorium. If you're lucky, they might have a cross. But usually it's just a bunch of, bands, rock music, drums, guitars, keyboards, a podium, and it's all about the guy up there talking. However, if you go to, let's say, Chartres Cathedral in France, you know something right off the bat. I'm in a church. Okay.
So I was gonna bring. So I'm the one who's Catholic here, and every Catholic church is the same. I'm not gonna lie. It is the same. It's the same prayers. Everything's very ritualistic, and you
structured.
And you go to a Christian church, and he's right. It's not really the same.
It's a free for all. It's a free for all. And here's the other problem. If you study those early Christians, when they get together every Sunday, what are they doing? They're celebrating communion. And that implies a ritual to celebrate it with. That's why all of those prayers are so old. Yeah. So in other words, this modern American idea, where is it coming from? Well, it's coming from the fact that when America was founded as a country, what was it founded on? It was founded on the idea of the rejection of tradition.
Oh, snap.
Also, remember that half the damn New Testament, speaking of the structure, mentioned earlier, our letters, Paul wrote to churches to kind of clarify things for them.
Right,
Romans,
exactly.
Corinthians, Galatians,
Yes.
Philippians, Colossians, Thessalonians.
Yeah,
are all
by the way, I
letters
heard you
Paul
guys
wrote.
are up to this. Stop that right now.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing.
That's half the New Testament. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, this America is founded as an anti-tradition tradition. So in other words, we're rejecting all that European stuff. Well, in the process of rejecting it, we've got to come up with our own homegrown version of it because it's better. Oh, really?
Yeah, right. I get
Really?
exactly. And maybe that's kind of what I was meaning by saying that, is that when people
I know what you were meaning. It just gave me an opportunity to rant some more.
Hey, go off, dude. I'll shut up the whole show. I'm loving all of it. It's just like it seems to me that there's this disconnect path to God, that it's like
people have to understand something about my 45 books. My 45 books include my theological books. Okay. And I've always told people all of my books are interrelated to each other, including the theological books. Okay. You really won't understand. I'm writing all these books about Nazis and Nephilim and so on and so forth, but there's a reason for that. And at the core of it is theology. So I have a 4-volume set of books called God, History, and Dialectic that are based on a course that I taught back when I was a professor. It's full of all sorts of little errors and everything, but the books are an attempt to explain, how did we get here? Why is our Western culture a mess? Why did all of a sudden, when we had one church, now then we have two, and then from the part that broke from the other part, it spawned all these Protestant sects that keep multiplying like rabbits and get narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower and have their own special brand of marketing. So it's an attempt to answer that question. And the only way to answer that question is to go back and dig into the history and show what the history is and where did all this theology come from? Was it invented by people sitting around evilly scheming to come up with difficult to believe stuff just to force on people? Well, no, if that's your view, that's not what happened at all. They were trying to answer questions as they arose and answer them in a way that was faithful to the tradition that they had received. So that's why you see this tremendous but slow development. But is this of interest to the modern American? No. And is modern America in trouble because we want to remain theologically ignorant and spiritually ignorant and listen to people like the guy that currently claims to have been Charlie Kirk's pastor that, is another one of these, hey, I'm hanging up my shingle and I'm going to talk about the word today. Oh, really? How much Greek did you study? How much Latin?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
How much Aramaic? How much Hebrew? Did you open one book of a church father at any time in your life to find out what the historical precedent is? No. Are these people therefore liable to teach you error? Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So get off your duffs, folks. You got to do the work.
Where should we start?
No one can do it for you. Pardon me?
Where should we start? Like if someone's
like I said, look, I just gave you 4 volumes of a book that I wrote called God, History, and Dialectic. And those 4 volumes are going to take you through the church fathers. So in other words, start with the church fathers. Start with the people who are writing before there is a New Testament that you can go to a Bible bookstore and buy between 2 convenient red leather covers.
All right, I'm gonna get
once you start there and start reading those people, go read Saint Ignatius of Antioch, okay? You'll immediately discover when you read his epistles that you're in a very different world from what modern American evangelo-Zionism claims is Christianity. You're in a totally different world, conceptually, liturgically, sacramentally, every other way that you can think of. It will be a shocker. And that's the other thing I tell people all the time. When you start studying this stuff, be prepared to unlearn everything you think you know about Christianity. Let those early bishops and priests speak for themselves. And when they do, you're going to discover it's a whole different intellectual world. And by the way, it's a very demanding intellectual world. Very demanding.
So when I have a buddy of mine, he found religion when he left from high school to college. He comes back and we always have discussions on religion and Jesus and all that stuff, and I enjoy our conversations. One time I brought up that I thought it was God versus the fallen angels, and he got very upset because he says God isn't battling anybody. So I try to kind of rephrase that in that it's like the fallen angels' war on humanity. What are your thoughts on that? Because we get into the Nephilim and who created this beast system and all these temptations and all these little g gods and all this stuff that's out there. What are your thoughts on the role of the fallen angels in our society today? Is there?
I think it's pervasive. I think it's pervasive. You don't have to look far and wide to see that there's a lot of evil, and it's craziness. It's both evil and crazy. Okay, and that's a clue right there. And I'm going to wax all theological again.
Let's go.
If you go to traditional Christian theology, and please understand, when I say traditional, I mean church fathers or if you're a Western Christian, at least as far back as people like Thomas Aquinas in the Middle Ages, or Boethius, or, people of that sort, Hincmar of Reims. In other words, I'm mentioning a lot of names most people haven't heard of, and that's my point. I'm not looking at Martin Luther or John Calvin or John Wesley or, all of a sudden, bang, Protestantism arrives on the scene 1,500 years later. And all of a sudden, hey, now we figured it out. I'm sorry. No, I'm not that way. If you look at the traditional theologians, they will tell you something about evil all the time and over again. Number one, evil has no substantial existence. In other words, that's not to say that the evil is not real, but it is not a thing. It is rather a twisted action of something natural. It is a personal twisting of something natural that does exist. In other words, the devil can never tempt you without twisting a natural good, without perverting it. That's number one. Number two, because of that personal opposition to what is inherently natural and good to you, what are you doing? You're splitting yourself off from yourself. You're creating, quite literally, a kind of spiritual schizophrenia. And in that schism of the mind, you're at perpetual war with yourself, and therefore, what are you? You're fundamentally, here it comes, folks, irrational and insane. You're crazy.
Yes.
Now, all of us are infected because of the fall to some degree with that malady. In the devil's case, you're dealing with a cosmically sized ego that thinks it can overthrow God and go to war with God. And because it's an angel, it exists outside of the normal temporal flow of time. And therefore, its personal opposition to the good is forever locked in that habitual choice. Thomas Aquinas says that at the moment the angels first use their will, at that moment, because they're outside of time, at that moment, they have locked in their habit of will. So in other words, evil is always, number one, a personal choice. Number two, a twisting against the natural good. Number three, therefore, always introduces, notice that twisting introduces what into the nature? It introduces death. And what is death? It's the separation of the soul and body. It's the separation of the spirit from the soul. And that irrational separation is what makes you insane and evil. So it's all tied together. Now, as for, is God warring against this? Well, he doesn't need to. He can make all things work for the good. You just have to give him time. But as far as what we're concerned, remember what St. Paul says. We war against principalities and powers. And in other words, what he's telling you is we're at war with something of cosmic scale and of cosmic intelligence and of cosmic power. We are. Can we defeat it on our own? No. No. If you think, look at the world right now. Do any of us really think we're going to fix this country by voting?
No, I couldn't. Yeah, it's so crazy listening
For the
to people.
Republicans? Are you kidding? They haven't grown two testicles in the same sack in all of their congressional delegations since Eisenhower. Okay? And as far as the dummy crooks are concerned, they like to murder babies and think it's okay. So, they have never got and never will get my vote. But do we honestly think that this system can be fixed politically? No, it's a spiritual problem. And the system, as I pointed out, was set up on an anti-tradition basis, and that itself is a spiritual assumption. You get a bunch of Freemasons together in Philadelphia. Oh, well, what are we going to do? Well, let's overthrow the old Constitution this week and come up with a completely new one. Okay, that sounds fun. And that's what they did.
Crazy, dude. So crazy.
Yeah, of course it's crazy. I keep telling people I'm not an anti-federalist because I like it. I'm an anti-federalist because that's what they did. It was a coup d'etat. And look how well it's worked out. We've been at war for most of our existence ever since. And by the way, concomitant with that, we've gone into what? Debt. Thank you, Al Hamilton. The only time this country had a balanced budget was when Andy Jackson from Tennessee got rid of the Bank of the United States.
Do you see any path to that happening anytime soon?
No. Not with what they're trying to do with tokenized assets and claiming to get back to gold-backed currency. What it is, guys, is, hey, we're going to create a sovereign wealth fund, and we're going to take some of that wealth and invest it in cryptocurrencies, which I like to call kleptocurrencies. And as we're doing that, we're going to be quietly buying up all the hard assets, things like gold, silver, land, maybe some patents here and there, So in other words, we're going to give you electronic blips. You give us your gold.
No.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, bro. And they've done it before. FDR.
Hey, of course they've done it before.
When they're all moving it out of the country now, too.
Oh, yeah. Did you see that? We didn't talk about that in Cash Daddies. How, JP Morgan now has set up their central gold
their gold desk.
Yeah, in Taiwan.
In Singapore.
Oh, Singapore. Yeah, Singapore.
Golly, I wonder what that means. Well, number one, maybe they're a little upset about the election of an Islamist mayor of New York City.
Yeah,
maybe that had something to do with it. It's crazy. But the other thing that you're watching right now is there are countries in Europe. I think Switzerland just recently passed an amendment to its constitution that they cannot forbid the use of cash. In other words, say what you will about this little piece of tokenized gold, at least it's a tangible physical thing.
Yes.
That is a medium of exchange that protects my anonymity and my transactional anonymity. And there are a number of states, I think Ohio is one of the more recent states in this country that's working legislation through to require the acceptance of cash in transaction.
You go places here and they'll tell you, oh, no cash.
But by law, they're supposed to take it. And there's actual places that if you bring that up, they'll just give you your food for free. You'd be like, hey, we don't take cash. Well, by law, you have to take cash.
You should have to take, yes. If it's legal tender, it's legal tender.
Yeah, you'll go to concerts and you'll go to concerts and be like, oh, sorry, it's a non-cash place. And you're just so, what the?
Yeah, well, we have to fight. We have to fight that. You either are good for cash business, and the way to fight it, folks, is use cash. I'm done using my debit card for anything other than online purchases, and about the only time I do that is if I'm having to buy a research book at Amazon or something like that. For all transactions where I live, I use cash. That means groceries, gas, anything I might buy incidentally it's always cash.
It's interesting you say that, Sam, because the Federal Reserve's advice on this, it says, is it legal for a business in the United States to refuse cash as a form of payment? And this says there's no federal statute mandating that a private business, a person, or an organization must accept currency or coins as payment for goods or services. Private businesses are free to develop their own policies on whether to accept cash unless there's a state law that says otherwise.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, there needs to be state and as far as I'm concerned, federal law to require the acceptance of cash. Because if not, we are going to be forced by human laziness into the beast system.
Yes. Our convenience is going to be our enslavement.
The convenience will be the enslavement. And trust me, folks, once they get those kleptocurrencies in as the only form of currency, you're dealing no longer with a currency. You're dealing, like Catherine Fitz says, you're dealing with a corporate coupon that they can adjust the value of depending on your conformity to their rules.
Well, they can already do that. They're the whales. Who are the whales? When they got the whales, they either take it in, take it out, and it goes up, it goes down. They can already manipulate the market.
That's precisely my point. They can already do this. If they get everybody corralled onto that reservation, then, if they don't like your position, your political, just look at Canada during Justin Trudeau's regime up there when they debanked the Canadian truckers for protesting his government's policies. They literally turned off their bank accounts. Well, that's the problem. If they can do that, they can do that and will do it in a completely digital system. And that's why it's a kleptocurrency. Because at that point, if they can regulate the value of your currency depending on your behavior, it's not a currency at all. It's a coupon, which they can choose to honor or not. So use cash as much as you can. I can see the day that you can pretty much bet your bottom dollar that the black market is going to be conducted in actual specie, gold or silver coin.
Yeah, I could see that too. Yep. I could definitely. I think, whenever you do have a socialist country, you see a giant black market open up, because in that socialist system, the only way to thrive is like literally becoming a singer or an athlete is the only way you can get your family out of poverty. It's such lockdown that then you see black markets open up where people are like, I got to do this because I can't make any money anywhere else. And you see gangs and mafias and cartels start to show up because they have to work outside the system because the system's so locked down. And the only people that thrive are the people who are elite and then completely corrupt politicians.
Oh, and then you end up with, like you did in the early days of, the Bolshevik reign, where you have a dictatorship of food. It's the people who have the food. Those are the ones who will have all the power eventually. If we really get to that point, because that was, famine. It was all in the early days. Like they had the farmers were like, we're keeping our shit, dude. I don't, and then they turned to violence and there was a massive
and what you see when that happens is the seizing of the means of production.
Well, that was it. Yeah,
that you take the means of production, what food and stuff like that, and you get rid of the farmers, and you just try to insert company loyalists who don't know what they're doing, and then famine comes. And
actually, in Russia, it was even more complex, because what people forget, again, Americans don't know history. In Russia, you had Tsar Alexander II after the Crimean War. The Russian elite that ran the country, including the autocracy, realized that if Russia were to remain a great power, they had to industrialize, and they could not industrialize under their feudal system. Because remember, Russia, up until the middle of the 19th century, was still a feudal society. It was a slave society. And in order to get to the point where they could keep up with the pace of industrialization, they had to abolish that feudal slave system. And they did it very cleverly. And, this is why Russia is a kind of hidden player in the American Civil War.
Yes.
Okay. What the autocracy did was they created a system of low interest loans. They funded the loans by issuing sovereign securities, bonds. The loans were made to the serfs themselves to be emancipated, to buy their land from their landlords, and then an additional amount for the loss of their labor to the landlord. So they became property holders with their own farmland that they were responsible for. Their previous landowner was compensated for the loss of his lands and the loss of his labor. So it was a compensated manumission. It worked very well. Russia, in that 40 years from the Crimean War up to the turn of the century, and really up to the outbreak of World War I, began to industrialize at an alarming pace. It became the Ukraine became the breadbasket of Europe as a result of the massive increase in food production, so that Russia was not only feeding its own population, it was feeding Europe. What happened when the Bolsheviks stepped into power? Well, they turned that whole clock back and collectivized the farms and said, no, we're taking all that land away from you. The state owns it now, but you get to farm it.
Unbelievable.
So in other words, they recreated the serf system.
Unbelievable, man.
And what happened to Soviet agriculture? It began to tank. I grew up in the 70s, and I remember that, every year the United States and the Soviet Union had to negotiate a new grain deal because Soviet production was falling short. Now look what's happened. Russia got rid of the communism. It lost the Ukraine as part of its territory, and it still is producing enough food to feed its own citizens without the Ukraine. So yeah, does the socialist feudal slave system work? No. It's a very efficient system for controlling populations and keeping your own power, and that's about it.
And it's crazy to me because, going back to Mondani, you have these progressives who are very much atheist, right? I mean, most of these progressives are atheists, yet now they're 100% voting for a particular Abrahamic religion. Well, you've got to understand something about the progressive, and it's not a surprise that they do this, because to the progressive, religion is nothing but part of a political process. It can all be managed by process. It really is not that important. We don't need to pay attention to what a religion says about the infidel and cutting off their head if they don't pay the jizya tax, and on it goes. So in other words, it's not surprising to me at all that the progressives vote for these people, because culture is not on their radar. To them, the entire thing is all about the political process. And process is never a substitute for substance. That's the problem. Look at what America's solution has always been since the Philadelphia Constitution. Why did we have a civil war? Why did we have it? Well, it was fundamentally not just because there was a slave section to the country and a free section to the country, but underneath those two things, there were vastly different cultures in the North and in the South. The Northern culture was predominantly, as you say, progressive. It was secularized Calvinist Puritans, basically, running that cult. Think Ralph Waldo Emerson and people of his ilk. When you go to the South, what do you have? Well, you have a fundamentally Anglican sort of, high Episcopalian culture of the Southern plantation owner. And all of that Northeastern Yankee revivalist, evangelical tent meeting mentality is about as far from the average Southern way of looking at things as you can get. So you have two cultures. So what's holding it together? Process. The government. You have a government trying to govern two different countries, all with the same process. And eventually, what happened? Well, it didn't work. Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln had to come along and say, well, it's the Union. And the Union is indissoluble. It's kind of like a Roman Catholic marriage, by the way, in that respect. You can't dissolve it. You can't. Once in, it's a suicide pact. You got to stay in. No matter how bad it gets, you got to stay in there. Now, well, the South said, no, that's not the way it works. No, sorry, bye. So in other words, the process solution to substantive issues seldom works. It always boils down to force. And that's where we are now. And by the way, I don't think even I think the substantive cultural issues are becoming so extreme. I mean, we've got a whole segment of the population that can't tell the difference between a man and a woman.
Yeah.
You know, and if I were the ladies, yeah, I'd be a little upset too. You know, so yeah, we're getting to the position where the cultural extremities are so extreme that no amount of process is going to hold. And by the way, no amount of force is going to hold it together. Ain't going to happen.
I got a new joke about how, like, basically, if you want to live in a proper society, you got to get rid of political correctness. You just got to. It's like,
yeah,
you have to be calling people out on their bullshit, dude. I mean, and we're just so worried. And like, you have registered clinical doctors talking about men having babies. And,
I know.
And they're everywhere. And yet the people who try to call it out as BS get shadow banned to the dark realm. It's such a just a dark web of anti-God. It's like an anti-nature. And it's everywhere. My question to you, I'm not going to keep you much longer, but my question to you is, I think in our modern society, we mistake culture for our heritage. Mm-hmm. And so much culture is basically manufactured in these think tanks in a way to push a ideology that is anti-God, anti-nature, anti-good for you. It's like, you know, whether we look at feminism, the hip hop culture, even to a point like Wahhabism in a weird way, where it's like you're taking out these moderates and you're installing these extremists to kind of just plunder everywhere. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if I'm understanding you correctly, pardon me. If I'm understanding you correctly, you're suggesting that there, in the absence of a culture that is a high culture that holds us together, that they are manufacturing a substitute, a kind of ersatz culture.
Yes.
A mass marketed version of culture. And if that's the case, yeah, I think you're onto something there, because the experiment of trying to hold discrete regional cultures together by mere governmental process is what I think is breaking down in this country. And it's an Enlightenment idea. And, you know, the Enlightenment has come and gone because it simply didn't work. And we're still trying to make that work. Okay. It's the Constitution. Well, yeah, when you're dealing with a bunch of Freemasonic Anglican deists that are putting together a constitution, so long as the country remains that way, it'll probably work. You know, it's a republic if you can keep it, to cite one of those guys. All right. But as soon as that culture shifts away from that, what happens to that machinery of government that you've erected? So the problem, I think, is, yeah, America was never able, because of its inception as an anti-tradition country, built in. Okay, we're rejecting all that European stuff. We've got to have our own music. So we have to listen to one-dimensional, 24/7 rock music with a jungle beat and put loincloths on and a bone in our nose. And I'm sorry, I'm an 18th century Johann Sebastian Bach kind of guy. I like complex music, not simple crap that is drummed into our heads 24/7.
I agree.
They have to manufacture a culture. And by the way, in my book, Microcosm and Medium, I go into how the CIA was involved directly in a lot of those 1960s rock groups to promote and drive a particular musical culture into society. And it was for a reason. Part of it was to make people stupid. And in that sense, they've succeeded beyond their wildest imaginations, because we're some of the stupidest people on the planet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they're trying to create a culture. And lo and behold, what are they doing? Well, they're using AI to do it. In other words, they're creating a complete fiction that has no grounding in actual human reality. It's just like our markets. Our markets are now being run by algorithmic trading executed by computers. Well, if your markets are being run and traded by algorithms and computers, how much of that represents real human evaluation of price, cost, and risk? How much?
None of it.
None of it. So the market gets more and more disconnected from on the ground, boots on the ground, human economic reality. Oh, the market's running perfectly. You know, the economy is just perking right along, you know, says the Grumpster and all of his people in Mar-a-Lago. And yet the people on the ground are having to pay more money for less groceries and more money for rotten health care. And, you know, just so long as the AI says the markets are going okay, then everything's okay. Well, you know, that's, again, you're divorcing yourself from reality. So, yeah, they're creating a false culture. I don't think it will survive because of its anti and inhuman nature. On my website, I have a fellow in Portugal. It's an architect in Portugal that just wrote a book. It's a good book about, he's talking about artificial intelligence and the cult of modernism in the arts. And as an architect, he's, you know, he looks at all these ugly buildings. You know, think of the Obama presidential library.
Oh, it's so ugly, dude. It looks
yeah,
like it's
well,
out of
yeah, of course it
Mordor.
is. But there's a reason it's ugly. They want it to be ugly.
Yep.
They want it to be ugly. Why? Look at what they did in the 1950s with the design of airports. Ever notice how they all look the same? All over the world. Doesn't matter where you are. You can be at Tokyo Hanedi or LaGuardia, and they're all the same. Okay, why? Why? Well, it was deliberate. So yeah, they're foisting a culture on people, and they're foisting how to put it? They're foisting a culture where the symbols are not apposite to what they symbolize. In other words, the symbols are almost contradictory to what they're intended to symbolize. So in other words, you're dealing again with that mentality that splits the brain and uses something twisted to symbolize something normal and natural. And, you know, a culture founded on those principles breaks down. The best example of this I can give for people to, if you really wanted to sink your teeth into this whole culture issue, the German novelist Thomas Mann wrote a novel called Dr. Faustus. And it's a retelling of the Faust myth of the devil and the guy that makes the bargain with the devil. The guy in the novel that makes the bargain with the devil is a composer. And Thomas Mann is, in the novel, he is fictionalizing the life of his friend, the composer Arnold Schoenberg. Now, if you haven't listened to Arnold Schoenberg's music, go do so. Try to, anyway. And then go listen to Clara the Cat. You know, listen to Arnold Schoenberg's piano music and then go listen to Clara the Cat. And I'll tell you, Clara the Cat's a lot better and a lot easier on the ears. But in the novel, he goes into why Schoenberg started writing all of this ugly, unlistenable music. And it's because the devil makes a deal with him. And there's a whole chapter where you have this confrontation between the devil and this composer. It's a wonderful chapter. If you don't read anything else in that book, read that chapter. And the devil comes to this composer in one of his fits of madness. And the devil says, I can offer you, and listen to the anti-tradition part of this philosophy here, because this is what's driving the modern West.
Yeah.
I can offer you one of a kind, absolutely unique, irrepeatable originality. And he does. because everyone who follows him is mimicking him. Now, contrast that offer. He achieves his fame. And by the way, Arnold Schoenberg becomes a famous composer by writing uniquely, originally ugly music. Okay. And I don't even glorify it with the term music. It's anti-music. If you turn the clock back to the 18th century and look at a Mozart or a Bach or a Haydn or a Beethoven or a Handel, those composers in that wonderful 18th century, they are taught music not only to imitate the masters, but they are given a theme of a previous musical master to develop in a different way than that original master did. So in other words, your whole musical education was not against tradition. It was to develop that tradition, to develop that craft. They weren't just a bunch of guys banging out tunes in their garage on their guitar. They were trying to understand the craft as well as human intelligence could, the craft of making music. And the only way to do that was to become part of that tradition and to develop it in a different way that was not against that tradition. So contrast the devil's offer in Thomas Mann's book. I can offer you one of a kind, absolute, unique, irrepeatable originality versus a Beethoven or a Mozart, whose music we still listen to. Why? Because it's well built, it's well constructed, and it's beautiful.
You're so right, dude. I mean,
there's the American dilemma. We can either get back to tradition and understand that this anti-tradition ride that we've been on for the last 250 years isn't working out too well, and we might want to rethink a few things, or we can continue to our self-destruction, which we're well on the way to. The Soviet Union collapsed. So what did Russia do? Is Russia trying to reinvent the Soviet Union? No. In fact, if there's a government on the face of the planet that's doing more to return to its traditional religious past, it's Russia, of all the countries on the planet. If you look at Moscow today, there is a church called Christ the Savior Cathedral in Moscow. That church was rebuilt in the last 20 years, completely according to the original design that Stalin had dynamited to the ground.
Oh my God.
To make room for some temple to Soviet man or some, monstrosity that never was built. So they rebuilt that church. In Berlin, the Germans rebuilt the old Stadtschloss, the old imperial palace of the Kaiser in Berlin. It's there. They rebuilt it. And by the way, they crowdfunded it. They tore down that ugly temple to modern man that the Soviets built in East Germany on that site and rebuilt the Kaiser's imperial palace in Berlin in the old governmental quarter. You can go online and look at it. So my point is people are fed up and they're moving back. My hope is that we're moving back fast enough, because we can't keep going down this route that we're on. I mean, we're watching Great Britain turn against its own tradition and inviting in people from third world crap holes, to euphemize Trump's statement about them, and turning the United Kingdom into, this third world Muslim crap hole. And the same thing in France. Well, it's not working out too well. And it's all been done by people who have no reverence for cultural tradition. It's all process. It's all Mr. Globalone. Yeah, we can manage this. We're the expert manager manipulators. We know how to do this. Bull roar.
I agree, man. I mean, everything you're saying right now, you can apply to almost every part of our culture. Comedy, when all comedy was in, it was not funny, and that was done on purpose to be like, look how original. Bingo. It's like Hollywood got away from hilarious and went to clever. right?
Bingo. Oh, listen, I'm so glad you mentioned comedy because, I love to go online and watch old Johnny Carson Tonight Show appearances with people that were genuinely funny, Jonathan Winters or Betty White or, Joan Rivers, or people that knew how to tell a joke and didn't have to use F-bombs all the time to make their point. Or scatological references to make their point, and who were genuinely funny. And now you look, and the reason they were genuinely funny was they weren't constantly preaching at people. So again, it's this American evangelical mentality that everything has to be a sermon and a message. Well, there's a place for sermons and messages, but Johnny Carson isn't one of them. I'm sorry.
I agree. I agree. You look at that music too, like everything's
Oh, yes,
crap.
exactly.
Like, that's what's being pushed on you. Because you go back to the architecture, it's like when you look at this bad architecture, your anxiety goes up, your depression goes up. It's not pleasing on the eyes. It's this. I remember watching Frank Ocean, who was the gay rapper, push forward, and he did something at the Grammys, and the room was quiet because it was so bad. Nobody enjoyed that's done on purpose. That's why the music is crap. That's why drill rap is pushed forward.
Yep.
That's why all these hooker rapper chicks are pushed forward. It's meant to be a war on your eye and your soul, and it's meant to be bad. There was a time when like NBC, their comedy was so bad, and everyone like, oh, it was a great time. The Office, Parks and Rec, and all this stuff. You're like, if it was so. This is how bad it got for NBC. NBC, out of 4 networks, was ranked 5th because Telemundo had jumped it because their numbers had gone so low because everybody didn't want to watch it.
Well, look, I get that because I have my internet comes with cable TV where I live, and I haven't hooked up my cable television in the 15 plus years I've lived here. I simply don't watch TV. I refuse to watch trash and to get preached to. If I want to get preached to, I listen to myself on a rant. And even then, I don't like it. I don't like ranting. You guys are lucky that you got me in the mood to rant today because I really don't like preaching. But it's become so all pervasive that you just can't listen to it, and I don't.
I think that's.
I'm a curmudgeon, guys. I grew up when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. Okay. And at that time, I hated them. And the reason I hated them was because everybody else liked them.
Yeah.
I was that much of a curmudgeon. It took me a long time to actually listen to them and say, hey, that's not bad. But, even then, I still make the distinction between the high culture in the arts and the popular culture in the arts. Yeah, the Beatles are good music. Are they Johann Sebastian Bach? No, they're not.
Yeah, so
they're not. Sorry.
And occasionally a Beatle will get through now. The Beatles, you will see
if you're lucky.
And the reason they do that is because
if you're lucky enough to find a radio station that'll play some music,
it's really bad. And the reason they gotta let that through, like you'll see it on Netflix, they'll just have absolute dog shit, and then one amazing series will come through, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. It's because that builds credibility. They're like, come back to us, come back to us. Oh, I like that. Okay, and then it's just crap after crap after crap, and then they'll drop another one on you to get you to go, oh, God, I can't cancel my thing. I won't get blah, blah, blah if I cancel my subscription. And it's just a marathon of dog crap with one little shining diamond that keeps you hooked there so that you don't cancel and they can still, it's
well,
not that they're not making money.
I don't fall for the shining diamond crap. I listen to all my music on CD. So, I'm not, I refuse to be the victim of the playlist at the local radio station anymore.
Yeah.
If I want to listen to Jethro Tull, I will listen to Jethro Tull. I'll pop in the CD and turn it on and I'll listen to it. So, I just refuse to be their victim anymore.
And Spotify's gotten so bad that I used to find all these amazing new artists. They don't introduce me to any more new artists ever.
Ever. I know they don't.
And if it is, it's going to be AI or some Bad Bunny sounding type shit.
Yeah, it's just really bad. And like Johnny brought it up, and we'll end it here, but the Detroit Lions halftime show, with Jack White and Eminem is going to be 1,000 times better than the Super Bowl halftime show, which they're just trying to piss you off with.
Who did we get?
And I don't even know who those people are.
Yeah, I mean, you're blessed. I mean,
And
they're great
I don't
artists,
care.
Who did we get at the Vegas Browns game? I did. It was a little too. It was a little too old for me. But it was
The lead singer of the Don Henley, but it wasn't him. It was a cover band.
Okay, guys, if you're going to talk sports,
No,
if you're going to talk sports,
we're out.
we need to be talking Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Rod Laver,
Right, 100%.
John McEnroe, Bjorn
Michael
Borg.
Jordan, Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah,
back when people
come on.
cared, they don't anymore.
Yeah,
Dr.
that's my
Joseph,
point.
this has been an absolutely all-time banger. Thank you for coming. I know we were going to get into more
Thanks,
Nazi
guys.
stuff, but this is
Oh, that's all right.
exactly what people want to hear because
They
they're
wanted to
just
see me rant and turn purple face.
Hey, dude, we love Purple Face Farrell, dude. We'll take Purple Face Farrell any day of the week. One more time, tell them where they can find you.
My website is Giza Death Star. That Giza and then Death Star. That's all one word, lowercase. That's my website. That's where they can find me.
It's always an honor and a privilege to talk to you. You have an open door anytime you got anything going on you want to promote. Just tell us, you can come on, and we appreciate you. Let's break down the episode. All right, guys, what'd you guys think of Dr. Joseph P. Farrell? What'd you think, XG?
Mount Crushmore. He ranted.
That was an all-time banger.
Yep.
Yeah.
I loved it. I could talk to him for hours if I thought he wouldn't get irritated with me. I would sit there and talk to him forever. Johnny, your
Oh,
thoughts?
didn't we have one where you irritated him a little bit? Or wasn't that one of the earlier ones? I seem to remember you getting.
I don't know if we irritated him. I have
Not this
irritated
one, but-
some people.
it was-
like that guy from that band who was like, all the Nazis are right, all the witches are right wing. I'm
Valentine,
like,
right?
not according to my experiences
The guy
in
from
any
Blondie.
way. Anyway,
the guy from Blondie.
the worshiping of the darkness is done by conservatives. Totally got you, dude.
Yeah.
To live in your little bubble of stupid.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah.
I love it, dude.
Which I'm not. He said something similar to that, which is that he thinks that the evangelical tradition is connected, or evangelical culture is connected to these liberals going on TV and expressing their beliefs and preaching.
Interesting, John.
Yeah, and I don't know if I buy that exactly. Do
Well,
know
you
what
know,
I mean?
yeah,
Like-
everyone's allowed to think what they want.
Right. No, but what do you think? I mean, let's unpack it a bit. What do you think about it? Do you
I
think
think there could be something that they are promoting what he sees as false doctrine, which is he could say somewhat, I don't want to put words into his mouth, but somewhat connected to the Luciferian, Malachian side of the argument.
Yeah. I see that with the left for sure and the celebrities, but I just don't know if I see that in the evangelical tradition. I think people are just doing their best on the ground level. Do you know what I mean? Now,
It
the
is
people higher
interesting
up-
that, and I'm a huge fan, but it's interesting that you think Israel has a right to exist, but it is a turd in a turd bowl and it's not based on.
I had that written down as a question here. Let's see. At what point do you forfeit your right to sovereignty?
Yeah.
As a country?
Well, I'm going to say something's going to piss people off. I question whether the United States has forfeited its right for sovereignty based on what we've done to the rest of the world. And he's totally right. You're not going to vote your way out of this. I'm not calling for anything. I'm sitting in the back and watching, but I 100% go, what we've done to the rest of the world is absolutely disgusting. And whether we have the right to exist based on what we've done to the rest of the world. But what he said was super interesting, that the foundation of the birth of this country was based on anti-tradition.
Yes. Well, and it's also, I've seen you grapple with this too, and I'm curious what you think now, if it's evolved, because you've talked in the past about being against these various modern secessionist movements, because you don't want to see the balkanization of this country. But at what point, if this country is a force for evil in the world, which you could argue certainly,
100%,
is the balkanization of it actually a good thing net, overall for the world?
Mean, the dissolving, listen, I don't want the country to dissolve. I love where I live. I love the country. The mechanism that is the U.S. government right now is completely broken. It's not serving anybody but the powerful elite.
It's broken except for them. Yeah.
Right. Corporate socialism and all that shit.
Which you could argue it's designed to work that way.
Balkanization is not good. So I don't know what the answer is.
Well, it's not good if you're at the top and trying to steer this giant ship the way you want it to go. But if you're maybe in a country where they're dropping bombs on you right now, then maybe it is a good thing.
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm saying from us, the citizens' point of view.
Well, it could not. I mean, maybe it could be good though. Like, what if we decide we go to Texas secedes, and we just get to live that Texas life? You know, I mean, it's
right, but eventually Texas will invade Arizona and Nevada at some point.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it will just curb stomp Louisiana because it's so small. Not that Louisiana isn't great, but you're just not big enough to deal with the fucking hordes of Texans.
It's funny. Louisiana was the center for industry in that part of the South during the Civil War. I mean, that was the only place that could mint money toward the end of the war, and the North kind of took it over.
Yeah.
That was the big city, though. In the South, it was New Orleans. That was it.
I mean, what's happening in this country is disgusting, and you're just never going to get anybody to be able to focus on it if they're fighting over Republicans and Democrats, straights and gays, blacks and whites, and religions and all that stuff.
What is the answer, though? Because I agree totally. You can't vote your way out of it. Voting doesn't do anything.
I mean, I don't want to say anything on here. I don't know. I mean, what is the answer? But it's like, again, if you have fat homeless people with iPhones, how are you going to get anybody upset enough to do anything?
Yeah. He was talking about, would you ever go to organized religion? Because he was saying that we kind of have to go to that just going to religion.
Again, I understand what he is saying. But I think when people think about organized religion, they think of like what the Vatican has become, right?
But is he not talking about Roman Catholicism there, like capital C Church?
Yeah. I mean, he is. I guess I don't know. In my head, I differentiate, these churches and this kind of, I don't know what perceived as like false doctrine and stuff like this, like where the church has inserted itself between you and God. When I think the connection should be you to God.
Well, that was funny though. You mentioned that because he's talking about, I mean, a number of the saints he brought up. Yeah. That was their thing, was that you needed a priest and like elders and stuff in the church to.
It's interesting to me. I don't know. I just go off my feel because I
agree with you.
It's been totally put me in positions to be right, and it just tells me that like the church has become so corrupt, or the organized religion has become so corrupt that it's like it's disconnecting you from Jesus and you from God. That's what I'm talking about.
Johnny, have you seen any change in a church you've been to where it went from like back in the day more organized to like kind of like what they're talking about?
Not the one I went to. No, it's pretty. I mean, it hasn't changed in 40 years. Yeah, but, you do see it more in that community. I mean, yeah, there's just all these like he said, strip mall churches, and in a way, I to me, should you discount a place because it's in a humble building? You know what I mean? Like I think no, you just
but
have to
it's
judge
like
it by
my
what's
friend
being said
Tony.
there.
Like he doesn't believe in going to a structured church. He believes like your church should be a home with people, celebrating your religion.
And that's exactly opposite of what I think the doctor would tell us. So it's interesting.
No, you're totally right about that. Yeah. I mean, and that's the whole thing about like, are we ever really meant to know what the real story is? And is there actual one real story?
Well, okay. Now you're getting into like relativistic territory there, but I mean, truth I think exists. Yeah, well, it's there's mysteries wrapped around it, but sure,
it's interesting. I just don't think that I'm smart enough and deep into enough to give any answers to anything. But I find that like following the teachings of Jesus and aligning your free will with God is the best plan to do. How you do that is up to you, but like basic things like love thy neighbor, don't steal, don't lie, don't try to bang your friend's wife, all that stuff is like when I look at, because I've never banged any of my friends' girls. I've never done that.
Nice job, dude.
Thank you. That's the closest I'll get to walking on water. But, it's like those are things that go, hey, dude, you don't do this, less chaos comes into your life. Don't lie, don't murder, don't steal, don't do. Like, those are basic rules. They're like, hey, dude, you do any of this, chaos ensues. You know, that's what I'm saying about lining your free will with God and getting away from instant gratification. And I'm not perfect. My sex addiction is just chaos. I know it's very hard. People always laugh at me when I say sex addiction is 10 times harder to break than drug and alcohol addiction. Because wherever you go, you're horny.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
I cannot drink. I cannot do drugs. I can go to a place where those aren't.
I mean, there's a joke where, if you go to AA for sex, there's someone there willing to do it with you.
Yeah.
Where it's like you can't even stop it.
I was talking to someone the other day about sex addiction, and he's like, yeah, there was always chicks there looking for validation. I'm like, I could not imagine going to a sex addiction meeting and there's a hot chick you want to bang. Like, that's like someone drinking Jack Daniels at the
Are they co-ed meetings?
There are co-ed meetings.
Are they all co-ed, or you can get some?
I've never been to a meeting that says women can't show up. It tends to be mostly men.
Okay, so are you actually saying that's uncommon to see attractive women there? Is that what you're saying?
At a sex addiction meeting, I would say yeah.
Oh, okay.
I would say there is probably co-ed, but I would assume there's like a bunch of females that get together and talk
But
about
what happens
you
is
don't want men there.
with females, they tend to go in there because they're so, they want love so badly that they put themselves in bad positions that love becomes their addiction. Trying to get love whenever they can.
Is that sex and love addicts? Is that the same one?
That's the problem. They clump them together, and I think they're two different problems.
Oh shit!
Yeah, the love thing is more of a woman's thing, right?
The love is more of a woman's thing about just falling for bad boys and just always picking the wrong guy and just, getting too much into the relationship, and then it ends, and then they're just like they're lost, like that stuff. And when guys are like, I can't stop jerking off I can't stop cheating on my wife and all that stuff, is like, I think it's two totally different things, but that's just me. Guys, if you go to samtripoli.com, you can get my dates. I'm going to be at the Comedy Store for Comedy Chaos. That will be up on the website by today. Minneapolis, New Year's Eve at Morris Plains at the Dojo of Comedy. And then what I'm so excited about, it's like, this thing is going to be insane and amazing. The people working on it are the best of the best. The World War debate, it's going to be packed out. It's going to be like everybody that we've approached to do it is like, I fucking love this idea. I think it's fucking great.
It's one of those, dude. Yeah, for sure.
And it's just got to be executed right. And even if, let's say, like we want to get Candace Owens, right? I think what's going on in her life, she doesn't want to be in open spaces, which I totally understand. So we can't get her, but we got other ones that are just, it's going to be great. And these guys are going to make money. That's the whole thing. It's like, we're going to make, debaters like pro athletes. That's the goal. If you go to samtripoli.com, you get all my videos, all my premium content. Johnny, talk about Comedy Chaos. Talk about Cash Daddies real quick.
How he continues to kill it. He's on there all the time. He lives on the Patreon. So if you ever wanted access to somebody who knows a lot about what is he?
Tell you why he does not.
That's a great.
That's a great one.
Good.
That's a great one.
Yeah, he just posted something. Why do I not listen to CNBC? And
it should just be why I don't listen.
Why I don't listen to CNBC.
Yeah.
He's again, idiot savant, as you say. But if you wanted access to an expert.
Yeah, but look at this. I gotta talk to him today.
This is good though. Stocks.
Well, that's a good one though.
Yeah, but the bottom one.
Yeah. Well, he's saying he's selling something, so that doesn't really help anybody.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you on that. But hey, dude, the S&P. If you know what that means, this Patreon is beating the S&P for what, 5 years straight?
Woo. Yes. Well, yes. Man, no, I don't think we've been doing it that long, but yeah.
I don't know how long we've been doing it.
A couple of years here.
A couple of years now. It's beating it every year. So join it. Join us. If you go to samtripoli.com, go down. Chaos Twins is coming. I'm very excited about it. It's one of my favorite projects I've ever done. If you have kids, you have nieces, you have nephews, this is a great thing for them to learn. It's a story of two sisters who basically learn how to learn about the world of conspiracies based on their neighborhood. Every house is a different conspiracy. Once that conspiracy is solved, they move out, a new conspiracy moves in. So
I love that, dude.
That's great.
yeah, we're very excited about it. And if you go down, and then guys, I listen, I'm telling you guys that these affiliate, oh yeah, t-shirts, man, you gotta get into that, dude. SAP season, the original one. And guys, again, we talked about Unbroken Sim. We're taking care of the people who had to pay $100 for parking at the Vegas show. We feel really bad about that. I'm designing a shirt right now for you. We're going to take care of you. You just have to email me. You have to show me a picture of your ticket. You have to tell me the exact lineup of it was. I was in the show. The people that were there were myself, Johnny, Tino, Eddie, and XG. Tell us the lineup, the exact order of the lineup. And if I feel like you were there and you're being honest, and I know I believe you and I love you all. Dude, that PSYOP season hoodie is fire.
Yeah.
Just email me at Sam. That's a fire. I got to get that hoodie. That is a fire hoodie. That's a fire hoodie.
I like it.
Wow. Just email me and with your picture, the lineup, and I'm making a t-shirt right now that I'm going to send to everybody for having to spend $100 on parking. Ooh. Not our choice. More than 40 people didn't show up to the show because of the parking. Chemical-free body. I love that. You know what? People, I take it every day. That is my supplements. And then everybody loves Pat Miletich, man, and his Mineral King. Check it out, man. A lot of people are buying it. Get rid of parasites. Take care of your soil. More great supplements there. One of the best ever do it. Pat Miletich. It's very insane to call him my good friend. I can't believe I'm friends with him because he's such a legend, and I love him with all my heart. We're very close. Very good about that. EMF Rocks, that dirty electricity we'll talk about in the next episode. And then tell us about your feelings on Brain Supreme.
Ooh, I love it. Go get yourself 1 week on, 1 week off. Go get them. Go use promo code.
Wax off. Anything else, guys? Xavier.
Hit that like button. Go check out my podcast, Extreme Marks the Spot. I had a little vlog for the Vegas and the Raiders Brown game with Eddie Bravo, so go check it out, please.
Johnny?
Check out Broken Sim. We just had one. Sam, I won't even tell you what he did.
I boofed Tic Tac.
There it is.
There it is.
Boofed Knick-Knack.
He put nicotine up his poop chute. So.
Yeah.
And it's not a joke.
No,
it's not a joke.
I
sacrificed my manhood for the show.
Did you smell it, Johnny?
It was horrific. Well,
why would he smell it? What would I pull it out and put it in his nose?
Yeah, he mailed it to me.
Could you imagine Johnny doing that? How much money would it take for Johnny to sniff a knick-knack up my butt?
$100,000.
I might do that.
You give me $100,000.
If I became a bazillionaire, I would shove one so far up my ass.
I could see.
Have a hot chick dig it out and then make Johnny sniff it for 5 minutes.
You'd be like Mr. Beast, just making people do all these horrible things for money.
I don't even think you'd make it Patreon exclusive. I think you just give that to the world.
For real, everywhere, and that would boost the shit out of it. I pay for so many ads for everybody to see it. I spend another $1 million just boosting it, so everybody.
You waste more on the promotion than you waste on giving him.
So funny.
All right, guys, enjoy the highlights.
We got a crazy fat shaming episode right off the bat. We talk about a fat convention that happened. You guys already know what I feel about fat people. Then, to top it off, Candace Owens got a green light put on her, an assassination attempt. We had to go deep down that rabbit hole. And is the video of Trump giving top real or AI? And just to the cherry on the top, this female decides to document her swingers party, and Chili enjoyed it. Hit that like button, subscribe. Let's get right into it, guys. Let's go. Welcome back to the #1 podcast in the world. It's your boy XG Marks the Spot. And like always, I got my #1 producer / graphic designer, Chili Merely. I don't have to do that anymore. We got a fucking soundboard. What's up, guys? We're back. Had a crazy 2 weeks. I was in Vegas. I was in Mammoth. I just want to thank everybody in Vegas. I want to thank everybody who bought merch. We sold over 80 t-shirts. I came home with some of them. I got some mystery t-shirts. So if you're trying to buy these, you only can get these at the Vegas show. So mystery t-shirts are going to be up on my website, fullytoxic.com. And there's 2 of them. So if you want both the mystery t-shirts, buy both of them. $80.
Can't even give a sneak peek.
No sneak peek. Chili saw them. Chili's taking one. They're funny how one of them's really funny and then one of them's just
They're
really
both
cool
good.
t-shirt.
Yeah. For the price especially.
Yeah, dude. And I also want to thank everybody who went to the show because we were performing. We were competing against F1. Formula One. Yeah. And guess how much fucking parking to our venue was?
I saw. How much?
$100. So people paid $30 to $40 to see us. And then showed up to the fucking venue, the Virgin Hotel, and then got charged $100.
Well, you kind of walk around everywhere there, no? Like you can't walk to the.
Dude, it was so packed. Like Ubers were expensive. They didn't really want to take you to the strip. And then we got fucking lucky because we wanted to go to the strip because we wanted to go to the ice bar. You've heard of the ice bar, right? Where it's like all ice and they give you a coat and shit. And we're like, fuck yeah, on shrooms, that's gonna be crazy. So they said it would have took forever, and they just gave us a bunch of reasons not to go to the fucking strip because the F1 was there. Then we're like, where do we go? And they're like, oh, we'll take you to downtown. Why was there a fucking music festival in downtown?
Oh, yeah, I saw that. I think I saw that too.
Yeah, I saw Waka Flocka for free, dude. He had white people.
That's dope.
Yeah, he had white people and Mormon people dancing.
That's cool.
I was dying. Like I said, I had just taken shrooms, so I couldn't stop laughing at these Mormon people putting it down for Waka Flocka.
It was free?
It was free, yeah. It was free. It was Deadmau5. There's a bunch of good artists for free. It was crazy.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It was full. Like I've always said, it downtown Vegas is putting it down. It's cheaper. It's not as ghetto as, I mean, it's still kind of ghetto. It's okay to be ghetto.
Did you see 3 Plates?
No.
He was there.
At the one in Vegas?
I swear I saw it that he did something with the F1. That's why I saw it. I think it was on his feed.
And this was everywhere.
Because he sets everything up. Yeah, I'm almost like 99%.
Have you checked out his new podcast?
No.
He's got some new
I
episodes.
saw his studio.
Yeah, I mean, he's been
looks
talking
good.
about it forever. So it's finally here, guys. Go check him out.
It looks good.
Yeah, shout out to 3 Plates. And yeah, so if you want some of these t-shirts, go to fullytoxic.com. Go cop them. And dude, Chili, you missed out because you were supposed to fucking go.
I know.
Nope.
Easy.
Yeah, I want that surveillance thing.
What?
It's working, right? It's gonna be. Go here. Water. You guys can never talk to
Let's just go sit down wherever we gotta go, and then you can dip out.
The crazy thing is, at SoFi, they allow Mexicans all over the place to sell shit, alcohol.
Yeah.
They don't do nothing.
They don't give a fuck.
No, there's a stadium.
Outside.
Surrounding. It's everywhere. Kids are selling vodka.
Right into the gift shop. They knew Sam needed gear. They're like, Sam came in here looking for gear.
Grab gear and just walk through it and charge your account.
Yeah.
You just grab
Oh,
gear,
yeah, here.
And they know you took it.
And then went to Raiders Brown game, so I was with Eddie Bravo, and he was being recognized everywhere. Yes, like little kids, and then me, and then eventually they're like, oh, you're so and so, and then you're Sam Tripoli. But yeah, Eddie Bravo got recognized everywhere.
That's dope.
Yeah, I'm gonna put up some clips that I'm not supposed to put up.
Who won? Because wait, Eddie's Browns and Sam is Raiders, no?
Yeah, but so Browns won, but Sam was also rooting for the Browns.
Okay.
Because he wants the Raiders to be last place, so they get first draft pick or whatever. You know how it works, right?
So it's like you don't want to be. I get it.
Yeah. At this point, he's like, we're not going to go to the playoffs, so we might as well fucking take all the L's, which is kind of like I kind of understand it, but at the same time, it's like, so you paid money
just to see the game. That's fun.
Huh?
It's fun.
It was a great time. Trust me. Being at a Raider game with Sam Tripoli and Eddie Bravo was super.
Was there any fights?
Amazing. No,
Oh,
telling
okay.
you, yeah. I've said it. It's too. There's too, dude. Starting to get. Technology is gonna be the downfall of us, dude. So I went in there and they make you just put in a card before you go into the consensus stand, and then you can pick whatever you want.
Bro, I don't get that. They
Bro.
did that at the Turnstile concert, and you put your card in, and then you pick whatever you want, and then it charges you later.
Yep.
And I was just like, yeah, but how does it know?
It just knows.
I don't get it.
It's
That's
fucking
freaky, dude.
scary.
Everyone was like tripping out, and I was just like, how does it know though? Like,
Yeah.
you can't even dispute it.
Yeah, and you can't even like sneak one in
No.
because they'll know. Like
Yeah.
the thing is, it's
So weird
Yeah,
to
and
me.
it's kind of creepy.
didn't like it.
Another thing, we're there. I don't know if we had like really really nice seats, and they were only doing at this section of the fucking of the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
But I was sitting down chilling. All of a sudden, a waitress comes and drops off beer and a fucking barbecue platter to like some guy next to us.
Oh, what the hell?
And I'm like, hey, how'd you do that? And he's like, oh, you just go on your phone and then you put in your ID and then they bring you everything. I'm like, dude, what are they gonna do? Bring a catheter so I don't have to go take a piss? That's the only thing. I was like, what's next? I fucking hate that I gotta pee mid game.
Yeah.
But,
That's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty tight. It was cool. And then I saw some of the F1 cars. They're
Yeah.
pretty badass.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's loud.
Yeah, dude. And then you know me, I've been in hotels for like the last 6-7 days because of fucking Mammoth as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, watching a bunch of ridiculousness or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The show, right? And I'm there chilling with Jen, watching the show, and she's like, you should do a show like that.
Oh.
And I'm like, bitch, I do a show like that. It's just an
Yeah.
adult version
She
of
doesn't watch
ridiculousness. And they're watching it. She's like, oh, that's a great show. You should copy, kind of like. And I'm like, dude, that's exactly what I do. Just an adult one.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
She reposts the clips. She reposts the clips.
She don't like the clips. And I have her mom following too. So sometimes I'm like, oh.
She loves Sam.
Like
She's already used to it.
Yeah, like the yeasty mouth.
Yeah, I didn't want to repost that one.
Yeah, there's
And
some
I
of them
was
you don't
like,
accept the
dude,
collab
I
to or
can't.
really late. And I'm like, Chili.
I lost followers. I was like, I don't want my mom. Oh my God, I went to go see my mom. And then she's like, I still haven't watched your show yet. And I was like, don't. Like, please don't. She's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, just don't.
Yeah, no, it's been a crazy week. There was a bunch of shit. Like Candace is fucking. She got a.
Oh yes.
She got
yes.
what would you call that? A
hit?
green light?
Green
Someone
light.
fucking green lighted this
Green lighter.
bitch for being a podcaster, for talking about the truth. I'm not gonna lie, dude.
Did Sam or Eddie talk about this stuff when you're hanging out with them? I was gonna text you and just like, hey, like, what the hell? All this stuff's coming out.
They
and
love that
you're
she's
with the two best people to be with.
They love that she's talking about it because they're like, all eyes are off.
Yeah.
They're not on me. Eddie Bravo was like, dude, I used to love being the conspiracy guy on Rogan.
Yeah.
And then
Now.
new conspiracy people started coming in, and I'm like, go, you guys die. You guys die. You guys tell people, you guys put yourself in danger. You guys start talking about the Jews and Mossad and all this shit. I'm like, these are killers. Look at Charlie Kirk.
At the live show, did you guys do questions? Like,
Yeah.
could they ask, were there any questions like that? Where people ask, I bet you the questions had to have been crazy,
I think it was such a quick Q&A. And it's usually like, I'll be honest, and I
like
I wish
crazy
people
theories.
started asking a little more in-depth questions, but it's usually like flat earth.
Oh.
Usually about aliens. I don't know.
I've been getting a lot of flat earth
Sometimes it
stuff.
goes a little deep.
Yeah.
But
Man, I would have been asking about Candace. I would have been like, do you think Trump's gay? I would have been asking about everything. Is Erica bad?
everything's fake and gay, dude.
What's going on?
Everything's fake and gay. So, do you think that video slash picture?
That's why, because you said that Sam was gonna make you guys watch it if there was a video of Trump really actually being gay.
And
Do you think?
No, we haven't watched it just yet.
It's just a picture. There it is. Okay,
There
let
it
me
is.
play this.
Let me see what this guy says.
This just in, the Trump blowing Bubba thing was real. We got a new leaked image of Trump giving the gawk to Bill Clinton in 2004. I was a 2-year-old child. And no, it is not AI. It has gone through so many AI detectors all across the internet. Not just one, not just two, not just three. Hundreds. People have been doing this all day. There is just a 0% chance it's AI. Cope. Originally, all the internet had was this image of them two together where they're obviously doing something. I don't know about y'all. I personally don't greet my friends like this. But it all checks out. This image is not fake. It is real. Comment your thoughts. Follow me for more news on this. I will be the first reporting on it, but shit is not looking good right now.
You think it's AI?
Here's a clip from the latest Broken Sim. Okay. Now this story is something we followed for a while. Remember the Supreme Court, like a year or two ago, came to LA County and said, you guys have to start issuing concealed carry permits. You haven't been, and it's illegal. Then we find out now that the numbers are starting to come in, that these guys haven't been doing a damn thing. These are the numbers we have right here. Okay, hold on just a second. Let me see. Where is the number? Okay. Applicant, here it is. According to the Justice Department's lawsuit, LA County Sheriff's Department received 3,982 new applications, and only 2 permits were issued. Are you listening? 4,000 people applied. 4,000 people applied after the government, the Supreme Court, said you have to start issuing these, and they've only done 2.
Yeah, it's
2.
It's ridiculous.
And they're trying to defend it, like, oh no, we are doing it. It says applicants have to wait an average of 281 days over 9 months, just for the sheriff to begin processing their applications. I know somebody who says that they were doing this, right? And they trick you, bro. So you do all this stuff, you send away your information, and then after 9 months, you'll get an email asking for information. And if you reply to that email, it starts the whole process over again, and you have to wait another 9 months. They trick you with this email they send requesting the information you've already sent. And if you make the mistake of responding to that email, it boots you back to the back of the line again. So they just have people who they're taking application fees from. It's like $100 or something like that to apply. And they out of 4,002.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
And they've been commanded by the federal government to issue these things. And they just are like, no, not gonna do it.
Not gonna do it. Not gonna do it.
1,000 points of light. Not gonna do it.
Not gonna do it. Read my lips. No new taxes. Tomorrow,
no new taxes. I am not a wimp.
I am not a wimp.
He's not a wimp, by the way.
I am not.
George H.W. Bush apparently is one of the only presidents who was told about, and I think because he was in the CIA, about the secret meetings that the aliens had with the government. The reports were that he was one of the ones who was told about that. That's what the people are saying. Kevin Spacey says he's homeless. We have this story here. Kevin Spacey says, I literally have no home. He's living out of his suitcase and working as a nightclub singer in Cyprus. And he's claiming that if just one of these big directors like Spielberg would work with him, his career would be back on the tracks. And
that kind of happens when 3 accusers die.
Yeah.
You know who's homeless? The 3 accusers.
Well, they have a home in heaven, I guess.
Yeah, 6 feet deep.
Yeah. Yep. Karen Bass finally acknowledged Spencer Pratt's existence. Did you see this, Sam?
Really?
Yeah, she attacks him on live on the news here. Somebody has to bring it up in front of her. Finally, someone brings it up in front of her.
Not just Spencer Pratt. The timing of this, saying that this was kind of misleading because that permit was already issued before the fire even happened.
Yeah. Well, that's actually not accurate, but Spencer Pratt is deliberately not accurate. But I was not just referring to him. There are several people who deliberately put out misinformation.
Yeah, I mean, these progressives think misinformation means something.
It's not every day that the mayor of Los Angeles goes on national television and calls you a liar. If I'm spreading deliberate misinformation, then why did Karen Bass delete her post about 915 Kagawa Street? We all know she deleted her post because she got busted. Mayor Bass claimed that 915 Kagawa Street in the Palisades was the first home rebuilt after the Palisades fire. Then she got called out. Even in this interview, Karen Bass admits the property was not occupied by a family before the fire. We all know this was a developer project, not a family home, and the permitting process began before the fire occurred. Doesn't matter that they had to renew their existing permits in April. Everyone knows that this was a spec home planned well in advance of the fire with no post-fire regulatory hurdles like actual fire victims who lost their homes are facing. You tried to use this pre-planned commercial project to claim a political win, and it backfired on you. You did this interview to backtrack and deflect, but the people who actually lost their homes in the Palisades fire know exactly what happened and what continues to happen under your failed leadership, Karen Bass. And you're right. It's not just Spencer Pratt. It's thousands of Palisades residents that got screwed over by your failures, and we aren't going to stay quiet. And guess what? Don't talk to us about trauma. You and Newsom and Janice Quinones at the LADWU are why we live now 10 months later with trauma every day.
So yeah, she
totally
got
right.
busted lying.
And hey, New York City, you want to see what happens when you elect a minority socialist? Go look at what Karen Bass has done to Los Angeles. She's burnt it to the ground. This is what they do. Okay, they're Bolsheviks, and they come in and they destroy everything around them. That's what they do. That's what their job is. I guarantee you this is what's happening in Vegas. They want to reset Vegas. They want everyone ran out so that they could do poor Raiders and athletics. They come in when the city is being just literally controlled demolition. All right. This is what they do. She's an agent provocateur. She's a Bolshevik. She used to go to Cuba to listen to Castro give speeches. She is one of the worst of the worst. She probably didn't even win that election. Okay. Then you have Rick Caruso pushing Prop 50. He's no better than anybody else. But this town will never change because it's a bunch of trust fund kids who have sympathetic empathy that the theory of hate is worse than real world consequences. They're garbage people. Garbage.
Yeah.
She's garbage. And it's never going to stop because the people in LA are so afraid of getting a red light when they try to work in Hollywood that they'll never say anything about it. The people who actually come out and say something are the ones who already made their money, so they don't give a shit. It's stupid, dude. Trust fund kids are the most dangerous animal on planet Earth. They have so much money that they vote with their heart, and they vote. It's like I was saying about in New York City. You see a woman get mugged, you got to ask her who she voted for first before you help her. Who'd you help? Who'd you help? Who'd you vote for? Who'd you vote for? Oh, okay. Mondani, enjoy it.
So
enjoy it.
I thought you might enjoy this. This was Michael Porter Jr. talking about the WNBA. He's gotten a lot of guff because of this comment.
I mean this as respectfully as possible. But 9th grade Lonzo Ball in the WNBA is going crazy. Like in 9th grade, I'm over 6 feet and I'm dunking. Like I'm coming through the no girl in the WNBA is doing that. I'm going back door, throw it up. Like I'm looking like Jordan out there.
I'm gonna go probably 8th grade because look, bro, I have real experience doing this because I played. My sisters went to University of Missouri, and I was still a young dude, and they had me playing like on the scout team, and they had a few WNBA players on the team, like Sophie Cunningham and a couple others, and I think I was like in the 7th or 8th grade going dumb.
If you'd like to hear the rest of this episode, subscribe to Broken Simulation in your podcasting app or check us out at youtube.com/Sam Tripoli.
Go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Tinfoil hack.